Welcome, my emerging expat. You're tuned in to Let's Move to Portugal. I'm producer Dan, and I have the distinct honor of bringing you YouTube travelers and our resident Portugal experts, Expats Everywhere's Josh and Kaylee. Each week, they'll inspire, they'll educate, and they'll accompany you on your journey to Portuguese residency. This week on Let's Move to Portugal, we're inspired by Dana's bold solo voyage to Portugal, carving out a community-focused existence. Join Josh and Kaylee as they explore her path from single retiree to an integral connector in Portugal's expat tapestry.
Hey, expats and travelers alike. It is season 2, episode 5.
How are you doing? Normally you ask me first. I'm going to ask you. How you doing?
I paused so you could ask me. I'm doing well. And you?
I'm doing okay. Thanks.
I'm fine. Thank you. And you? So, listener, we have a bit of an update on kind of life. The sun is actually shining outside, which is miraculous considering we've had, 18, 19 days of rain.
Not full rain the whole day. Yeah. And people think that, that's what Porto's like. But yeah, there has been some weird weather lately.
It's been incredible. Not soul crushing, but it's just been incredible. Like, we've had moments in the past few days where it's literally been like full on sunshine outside and raining.
Yeah, or just full on sunshine and then all of a sudden, boom, downpour. So you think, I can go outside for this quick errand with no umbrella or no hood or something, and then you get caught in it. Or we get caught taking Sia like in the morning or afternoon. I'm like, okay, the weather looks pretty good.
Yeah.
There seems to be a break for like an hour so we can walk. And then you get drenched with the stroller. So.
Yeah, fortunately, she just laughs. Like, she's got like a shield that we pull over her head. And
the canopy.
The canopy, and she just laughs at us getting soaked.
It's been weird. My concern is that we're going to have a very wet winter.
Well, we've skipped fall.
Yeah, there was no fall. That's right. Because
we had summer, hot weather through like mid-October.
Which was
hot.
Also weird.
Hot.
Yeah, but really nice. Sunny.
Loved it.
Warm. Weird for that time of year.
Yeah.
But then, it's like we've completely skipped fall. There have been leaves changing though, so that is pretty. Red leaves and orange leaves that are on the trees and on the ground now. But the rain part of it is more like we're in winter.
Yeah, and it's not actually this year, at least, unique to the north. We've seen weather patterns, at least from Lisbon up, wet.
Yeah,
right? We have heard of people like in the Discord group that we have for Expats Everywhere. Someone is currently in Tavira, like someone that is doing a scouting trip. They're in Tavira, and they've been sharing photos of like beautiful sunny days happening down there. So Tavira is in the south, in Algarve, southeast.
Yeah. So down there is not as bad, but apparently there have been a lot of storms off of the coast.
That's right.
Back-to-back type storms. So that's what we've been told, and that's what's bringing all this rain.
Fun times.
Yeah, it can go away now. I'd be happy with it for a little bit. Because like last year, I tell people, in mid-November, you're still sitting outside at cafes with a light sweater on, and it's pleasant.
Yeah.
But man, these past couple weeks, not so much.
Okay, so update on the YouTube side, and then maybe we can talk a little bit more about personal stuff before we jump into this week's interview. But on the YouTube side, we had a bit of a fiasco as we tried to connect the podcasts with the channel. It dumped a bunch of impressions out. So what we've decided to do, because this is all very new to us, the fact that YouTube is offering us a way to create a podcast still on the platform that will play on YouTube like a video, which is weird because not all of these are going to actually have videos. Like, for example, today Kaylee is suffering some allergies, so her face is puffy. So therefore, we're not going to have a video.
Thankfully.
Yeah. But in the future, what we're going to do is we're going to be able to record these with our camera on and be able to look at you eye to eye as we go through the weekly welcome and then on into the actual recorded video part of the podcast itself, which is cool. Now, what we've had to do is we've had to shut off the link between our podcast and the channel, and we have redirected everything to a separate YouTube channel that is Expats Everywhere podcast. And
Which means we currently have 4 channels now on YouTube.
Yeah, but this one's different because this one's going to be very much automated. So when we do a podcast and we load it to our main site, which is transistor.fm, it will just get redirected then to YouTube.
So then you can listen to it on YouTube, or you can continue to listen on any of your favorite podcast platforms.
That's
like
exactly
Spotify and stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
So it's just another option, I guess, right?
And then when we do have videos, you'll see the video format on YouTube, or you can listen to it just straight up on YouTube Music, which I've never actually used before.
Yeah, YouTube's diversifying.
So fun times, and all of this is honestly supported by our community. So we really appreciate you. If you're a member, a paying member of our community, we appreciate it. But even if you're not, it's all good. It all helps us out, and yeah, we appreciate it.
Yes, we love you.
Okay, so building projects, we have hit some delays. We've had some good movement. So for example, we have been registering for the ARU, which is like Área Rehabilitação Urbanizada or something. I don't know. I'd have to pull up what ARU stands for. But essentially, it is a zone in the city where if you are doing some sort of redevelopment, renovations, rehabbing of property, and you take that property from its current energy efficiency up like 2 or 3 levels, then you can get your taxes back, your IMT taxes back. And there's also like a 6% tax on, I think it's tax on services if you're an ARU property. Anyways, so we have gone through, or we're going through the process of getting that. So people that have bought a unit with us, they are going to be able to take advantage of that tax refund at the end of the project when someone comes back from the city and says like, oh yeah, you were at an energy rating of E, which is one above F.
But that's what it is right now.
And now you've raised it to a B plus or an A or whatever. And therefore you get your IMT taxes back, which could be a savings of like tens of thousands of euros.
Yes, it's definitely worth it. So we're going through that process, and that's looking good. But like Josh said, we're, I guess, a slight delay, not much. We could have started demolition on November 2nd, but we are waiting. Like that was the day that we could start, but we're waiting for one more license to allow the architect engineer to block the road to get the machinery in.
Yep.
They've got to put a crane up and everything, and it's a one-way street, and so they have to have authorization to block it. There has to be a police officer out there. So we need City Hall to just give us that date, and then we can get going.
Let's go, City Hall.
Yeah.
Come on.
We were just speaking with a Portuguese friend who, he had asked how
the project
was going, and we said, well, we're waiting on the camera, and he's like, and he and his wife always, it's that's always the answer when people are doing something. So we are in that position as well.
Yeah, he's like, it's not just you.
Yeah, but we also have another channel for all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Let's Get Building with Josh and Kaylee. So we will be putting updates on there too for more comprehensive updates and video shots of progress.
That's it. But let's talk a bit about Dana. Dana is our guest that is an inspiring retiree who has moved to Portugal, and she moved in spring of 2022. Kaylee sat down with her. How was the conversation?
It was a lot of fun. It was nice talking to her. She's down in like the Cascais area, and she moved, like Josh said, in 2022. So she's been here for a little bit and has her own place, is really connected with the community. She's retired and also on her own. So she did the move by herself, which was
solo.
Yeah, which was something that I know that there's a lot of ladies out there who are considering it. So she's a great resource, a great lady to talk to about what that's like to do that when you retire and then move somewhere abroad on your own. So it was a really good conversation.
Literally, when you said that, Beyonce's like all the single ladies popped up in my head. All the single ladies.
That's a bit of a throwback now if you think about it. What year did that come out? But that used to be the good one at the clubs.
Yes. Fortunately, you will know what we're talking about. However, if it was a younger person that was listening to this podcast, they'd be like, what? Although they would know Beyonce.
Are you calling our listeners old?
No, I'm calling them similar age.
Similar
to us.
age, yes. Yes, everyone knows Beyonce, but that's quite an iconic song. So
Oh,
if you haven't heard it, go listen to it. But yeah, but yes, we do have a lot of friends who are single women instead of saying single ladies.
Well, we actually
women
know
who
some
are
single men too.
men too. Yes, yes. So it's definitely a doable thing if you want to do it on your own.
Yeah.
So she was great chatting to you about that, and just the confidence in that.
Yeah, I will say that though the common denominator between both the single men and the single women that we know is that they both like men.
It's like, yeah, that's not everyone, but yeah, that seems to happen a bit more.
Oh, that's true. We do know a couple single guys that like women, but it's hard, isn't it? Like we've actually talked about, like could we introduce these people? But it's like, I mean, we can introduce them as friends, but not as romantic matchmaking, right?
Where are we going with this, Josh?
We're going. Listen, we're going to roll an ad, and then we're going to get to our interview with Dana.
Okay, great.
Dana, thank you so much for joining us on Let's Move to Portugal. We really appreciate it. Let's first start with how you decided to move to Portugal. What was that process like being a retiree here?
I retired a long time ago, about when I was 50. So I've had the chance to look for quite some time. And I knew I didn't, by 2015 or so, I was really becoming frustrated with the United States. I'd always been a bit of an outlier myself. And, you can't talk politics. You can't, families are being shattered over politics. And people just got ugly and opinionated and not willing to see another side. So when a friend traveled to Portugal and raved about it, I said, I'm going. And of course, I raved about it too. This to me, Cascais in particular, reminds me of what I thought was the best of Southern and Northern California that I could afford. That is, moderate weather, no ice, no snow, and really decent, not hot summers. So I thought about moving here quite some time. Went back and forth for 4 or 5 years, learned about the D7 process, which is the retirement visa, actually detailed but easy to get. That is, you just have to prove a certain amount of passive income, could be anything from your savings. And you also have to prove that you're not a criminal and carry health insurance for a while. So for me, that was an easy process, stressful, but easy. In the end.
What year did you make your move?
My D7 arrived in January this year.
Okay.
I moved permanently in May, but I've had an apartment here for 18 months. So it feels like 2-3 years to me, but the last 6 months have been very solid, Portugal only.
Okay. Did you purchase here?
No, I'm not sure enough of what I'm doing here to purchase. I'm by myself, recently separated, and I just didn't feel like I had enough knowledge to plunk down that amount of money. And while I love my apartment, it's not fit for 2 people. And someday that may happen. And
sure,
in the meantime, I don't need to be buying anything.
Yeah.
Required.
Why did you choose Cascais?
Well, I developed friends here over the years, and there's a wonderful group of women. There's actually a Facebook group called Women Over 50 Moving to Portugal.
Okay.
Which I thought was fascinating. There's about 10% expats here, and so it's very easy to get along in English here, which, of course, is the only language I know while I'm studying Portuguese, which will take me 2 years. It's very difficult.
What when you say there are 10% of expats there, what are the different nationalities that are represented?
There's a lot of Americans here, a lot of British, spackling of all over Europe. So you get a lot of people that, for example, there's a big UN community here. People that work for the United Nations or UNHCR. A lot of Irish and British, although the British tend to go south to the
Algarve.
Yeah, the Algarve. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is I'm 40 minutes by train from Lisbon. I can go anywhere. I'm nestled up against the Sintra Mountains, which are amazing in and of themselves. And of course, the palace and the old Moorish castle. And there's just so much to see and do here. And I wanted to be in Europe. And this is a place that really welcomed foreigners.
Absolutely. How often do you make it into Lisbon?
probably about once a week.
Okay. What do you do there? What brings you to Lisbon?
I go to AA meetings.
Okay.
And I go to art shows and go shopping, go to have dinner, whatever.
Are the AA meetings in English or Portuguese?
We have
Or
a
mixed?
solid AA meeting, a solid AA group. We have 3 of them. There's one in Lisbon, one in Estoril, which is 2 train stops away from me. I could walk.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one I walk, and it's about 5 minutes away from my apartment.
Okay.
So it's a good cast of characters that I can reasonably interact with as a sober person working through sobriety.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind me talking about it, asking you about it,
Sure.
how tempting is Portugal, considering drinking is very much a part of this culture, and the wine, like wine and beer are cheap. We tend to find a lot of foreigners move here and then, I don't want to say pick up a habit of drinking, but definitely drink more than they would, let's say, in the States or UK or Australia or Canada, because it's much cheaper.
It's cheaper, and it's very much part of the social fabric.
Right.
When I retired, I felt like I could just when I moved here, I felt like I could just let go. And
Okay.
part of the attraction initially was the drinking. You could drink at lunch, you could drink all day. But being an alcoholic, that isn't actually an ideal situation for me. And I just,
Right.
Rather than being socially out there with people with drinking, because drinking is very much a social activity, right? That's
Sure.
what we all think about. And I'm not good with social drinking. I just am not. I end up making people mad or making myself mad or being embarrassed. And that's just not something that works for me now.
Mm-hmm.
So how is it? Yeah. The brief of it is, I'm glad I went to treatment. So I had 30 days with all sorts of other addicted people, many of whom were like, crazy. But I am too. And then I came here, and the advantage I have is that I'm older, and I'm far less likely to be tempted by, hey, let's go out and party at the bar.
Sure. Yep.
But first of all, that's not actually the culture here. There is the people who bring that tend to be Americans or British or, the binge type drinking.
Yeah. Or a younger demographic as well. Right?
Yeah, because it's easier to do it when you're young. When you're older, yeah. And so my friends are mature. They've been great about saying, no worries, you don't drink. We had a parade of the rosés day at a friend of mine's house, and I don't know, there were 15 of us, and everybody brought a variety of rosé.
Yep.
And I brought pink Schweppes, which I was
Perfect.
thrilled. Yeah.
Perfect.
So, alcohol is everywhere. It just is. The only difference between here and anywhere else is that if you're retired, you don't have anything else you have to do. And it's much more socially acceptable to drink around lunch. It's very assumed that when you go somewhere, wine will be offered or looked forward to.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Kaylee and I, we noticed the impact that the additional consumption of alcohol has had on our bodies. And we've made a much more concerted effort to just kind of cut back on that. It wasn't nearly the idea of like, cognitive functions declining or anything like that. But it was just like our bodies were taking a toll, and we were so used to kind of being in an athlete's kind of mindset, wanting to have a fit body, that, we definitely started to scale back the amount of social drinking we do. So oftentimes I'll go out with friends and I'll just order a pedras, aguas pedras, which is sparkling water. And, it looks like I'm having something, but I'm having water.
Yeah.
So it makes it really easy. Okay. So you go into Lisbon once a week, you said?
Mm-hmm. About.
Yeah. How long does it, or what's the journey like? Because you said it's about 40 minutes, but what's the journey like? Is it pretty easy to just hop on the train, or do you have like several transfers that you have to make?
No, it's fabulous.
Okay.
Yeah, I picked my apartment partly because it's a block away from the train station, so I walk. Anywhere in Cascais Central is pretty close to the train station. The train runs every 20 minutes, so there's rarely much of a wait.
Okay.
and it's 40 minutes into Lisbon at the end of the line, Cais de Sodra.
Yep.
Other places in Lisbon can involve, the metro or
Yes.
another train or even a bus or an Uber, all of which are really available and relatively easy to work around. The Portuguese people, as you probably well know, can be incredibly helpful. They really want you to enjoy what you're doing and to find what you've lost and those kind of things. Yeah,
Nice.
so it's easy. It really is easy.
I would imagine that there's a fair amount of people that arrive into Cais de Sodra and they just stay in that area because you've got the timeout market there, or at least by foot, you can walk down along the riverside, or kind of go a few streets back and you have tons of restaurants and things to do just in that area. So coming from Cascais, you don't necessarily need to then hop on another mode of transportation to do anything.
Oh, one of my favorite restaurants is a little place right past the train station going towards the river. And you go up the stairs and it's a 2-story restaurant. Looks right out over the river. Great viewing place, decent food, not too expensive.
What kind of food is it?
Oh, you would ask me something like that. I don't know.
Portuguese or
I'm
international?
not a fan of typical Portuguese. I apologize.
You don't have to. No, I'm not taking any offense.
Their fresh food is fantastic. The fish is amazing. The salmon is great. They just don't spice things up much. And being in Cascais, of course, there's lots of typical Portuguese restaurants which serve foods that I'm just not yet a fan of.
Okay.
The cod, Donata. Not a fan of the cod. I like octopus, but I don't eat it now. Like Minnie, I watched the Netflix documentary and I'm like, another thing off the table. Great.
I just heard about that documentary.
It's fabulous. You might not eat octopus afterwards.
So to give context to the listener, there's a documentary where a scientist befriends a octopus.
Mm-hmm.
He's a scientist or a diver?
No, I don't think he's a scientist. He's a free diver, so he doesn't dive with any tanks or anything. But he dives in the cold waters, and he spends a year with an octopus that he comes to talk to. And I shouldn't say talk to. They connect. They really do. The octopus falls on his hands. Yeah. He's curious about him. And, of course, this particular species only lives 1 year, so he gets to see her through most of a year of life. Okay. And it's astonishing. She has babies, and then she dies, which is what that breed does. And the video is just amazing and interesting, and I can see why a lot of people said, "Oh, well, I'm not going to eat octopus again," because that's right. That's you were one of them. Creature. Yeah, it's a sentient creature more than like even a cow, probably.
Sure.
At least it seems like it. So that's what I got out of that.
Okay, interesting. Well, maybe I'll avoid it. Sounds like a fascinating documentary, but I do like octopus. So, okay. So what foods have you found that have been pleasing to your palate? Because we do know of someone who is a major foodie that moved to Portugal. This was like 2021. And she and her husband within, I think, about a year decided to leave because the food scene just wasn't like what they were looking for. She moved to Asia. Yeah. So talk to me.
It's surprising you should mention Asia. I really do actually like Asian food. Okay. There's a very decent Thai restaurant here in the center of the town. There are some good, I'm a yoga teacher and I became not vegetarian, but really vegetable focused.
Okay.
I'm not a huge steak eater. Yeah, more plant-based. And so I'm going to Roots Cafe for the first time today. House of Wonders is fabulous for vegan or vegetarian. And there are creative places to get food. If you find a pizza place that's run by Italians and not our famous, who are they? Our people from India that seem to run a lot of the restaurants. Yeah. And even there you can get halfway decent pizzas. I like the fact that there are a lot of different types of food. I don't eat sushi per se, but there are a lot of what look like decent sushi restaurants around. And you just see a lot of typical Portuguese, so you have to look for other things. Yeah, so I have to say I went to Italy 2 weeks ago and loved the food. Left
Yeah, for
rid of it.
sure.
I was like,
For sure. For
yeah,
sure. Kaylee and I are planning a trip coming up pretty soon. Well, around Christmas, New Year's. We're doing a road trip in Italy, and we are super excited about all the food. I
yeah,
mean, we probably will not eat non-Italian food, but a few times we'll probably just eat Italian regional dishes, just because we don't often eat it. To be honest, we don't eat it here in Portugal very much, and if we do, it's usually me cooking something that
right, right.
I learned how to make from my dad, who's not Italian, but does cook Italian food very well. So
Nice.
tell me about pricing. I mean, do you see a massive price difference between the Portuguese restaurants and the foreign restaurants in Cascais?
There's a new Chinese opened up, and it had shockingly, to me, high prices.
Okay.
I think, paying 15 euros at minimum for a lunch seems like a lot to me because that's a $20 lunch and that's not including drinks. Oftentimes your entree will be 15 and it typically doesn't come with anything else unless you pay for it. Like, you pay for bread and olives and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So I come away feeling like I haven't had enough a lot of times.
Okay.
I don't know about the divide between, foreign and local. It seems like they kind of merge a lot.
Okay.
There's not big chains here in Cascais for sure.
Right.
The chains that are here are local chains and things that are actually quite good. We don't have a Honest Greens in Cascais, but there sure is two in Lisbon. There sure are
Yeah.
two in Lisbon. And for the price and for the quality, I think it's a really good, reasonable choice. And I'm sure that's not based from Portugal, just not the standard type of fare.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Honest Greens. So we have a friend that's visiting who is vegetarian, and we said, yeah, let's go to Honest Greens. And she was like, fantastic. She knew what it was. She lives in Miami, but she knew what it was because she spent quite a bit of time in Spain. I think that they're actually headquartered in Madrid, I believe.
They might be. I know I met them in New York City and was just thrilled with the variety and the freshness. It's just like going to a salad bar, except someone actually knows what they're doing and puts together really great things. And, 10 euros later, unlimited water if you get just plain water or
Yes.
or even
Yeah, exactly.
water. Unlimited water, where here in Cascais and in Lisbon, you're going to pay for every pedrush, every sparkling water you order. And
Right.
if you're lucky, they serve them in the big bottles because as a non-drinker, as a non-alcoholic drinker, I find that I drink a lot of water when I'm with other people.
Sure.
Gives me something to do and that kind of stuff. So.
Right on. Yeah. And like you said, it can add up because, I mean, in general, the price of a sparkling water is the same price of a Superboc or a Sagres,
Right.
which is generally, I think, what leads people to drink.
Yeah.
You look at it and you're like, I could get plain water or I could get an alcoholic beverage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Which is more satisfying. And yeah, I'm teaching them how to serve water Americano style, which is Americano style is with a big glass of lots of ice, muito, gelo.
Yeah.
Because they don't usually serve. If you ask for ice, you will get 1 cube.
Yeah.
And that's not ice for water for me. Sorry.
Okay. Right on. So do you have a cafe kind of culture there where you meet up with friends and you go to cafes and have coffee and pastry? Or is it more like lunch and dinner type of things where you interact socially with your friends?
It's both. It's both.
Okay.
Coffee, espresso in my case, and something sweet is very common. I am taking Portuguese lessons just a little up the hill, up from 25 Abril up the hill. And so I sometimes have lunch there, but that's a good place for coffee and a sweet.
Do you have any favorite pastries?
No, yeah, anything chocolate. My goodness.
Okay.
The pastries here are actually very, very good.
Yeah.
I would say the little chocolate the cookies that are white with dark chocolate, they're dipped in dark chocolate or painted or whatever. You can find lots of good sweets here. Even a baked apple, which is just the apple itself
Yeah.
put in the oven, and it collapses in on itself, and it's soft, and I'm sure they put cinnamon or something else on it to add to the sweetness. You can find really good gelato here. You have to work at it. There's places that sell gelato, and it's not. It's
What's the big chain there that you usually see lines out in front of the shop?
Yeah, that's really actually right where I live. I live almost right above Santini. And Santini
That's it,
is a big chain.
Santini. That's it. I thought that's where you were describing when you were describing where you lived. I thought that was where it was.
Yeah,
Okay.
I look right out over everything. Yeah, and ice cream. Goodness, food is not my forte. I'm so sorry. If you ask me
No, it's
about
okay.
food, I'll do a lot better.
Well, let's actually talk about, because you mentioned walking up to your Portuguese lessons. Let's talk about that. How did you find the place where you're studying Portuguese? How much do you pay? And what's it like? Tell us your
Oh,
experience.
sure. She was referred to me, the lady I'm taking the classes from. That's where she holds classes because it's close to her apartment and people just come there. It's up in an area that's close to a highly expat area. So you typically see people walking that look like expats, along with obviously all the Portuguese. But yeah, it's a little cafe, Sisal, Sisal, and that's a chain of restaurants. You see them, or of little coffee shops. You see them all over. And what else did you ask me? How did I find her?
Yeah.
From friends of friends.
Okay.
And I paid 25 euros a session. There were two of us, both of us paying 25. I've heard of other teachers that'll take up to 4 people for 30 euros total. I do like that I have basically a one-on-one or almost one-on-one. It's very helpful to me. I'm doing more and better now that my other friend has left to go back to the States for 6 months. Excuse me. And we meet twice a week, which I'd highly recommend. Once a week is not enough for this language.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I've developed quite a friendship with her as well. So
nice.
She had a lunch thrown by her students down at not John Bull, but the other one down there, the Palm Tree. And the food at the Palm Tree was surprisingly good. I was really impressed.
Nice.
Yeah.
So your lessons with her, are they 1 hour or an hour and a half? How long are the sessions?
An hour.
And are they conversation based, or do you have a textbook?
She starts out with, what do you want to know? And,
Okay.
The obvious things, who, what, where, when, and why are good words to know.
Mm-hmm.
And verbs. But to some extent, it's really been conversational from the get-go.
Okay.
Like, I want to go shopping at the market. I want to buy this. How much does this cost? How to get the bill. And I knew some basics of Portuguese. I was studying with Duolingo, which, note to your viewers, be sure the Portuguese app the app you use to start learning Portuguese is not Brazilian. And I know of one, and it's Memrise, which
Yes.
I actually recommend, because many of the other big ones that have maybe some better features, you're learning Brazilian, which might help you, but might also confuse you because it's not the same.
Yeah, the sound is very different. There are some grammatical differences between the two in terms of the way that Brazilians structure their Portuguese versus European Portuguese being structured. Yeah, you're exactly right. Kaylee and I use Memrise as well as a part of the course that we do, which is Portuguese with Carla. We're still working through the journey with her, which is an online course. However, I think at some point, Kaylee and I will switch over to doing an in-person class as opposed to online, because with some of the classes that are accredited, you can essentially get your A2, and then when you're ready for citizenship, you already have your A2 certification and you don't have to sit for a test. Kaylee gets these like test anxieties. She really doesn't want to sit for a test. For
Yeah.
me, I'm like, when are we going to find time to go to classes for like 3 hours a day, twice a week? Because I think that's generally what they are. They're long, they're like university,
Yeah. The government sponsors, the Portuguese government sponsors, and I believe it's only 20 euros to do it. I believe it's 8 weeks, and it's probably, I'm guessing 3 times a week for like 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, you're really studying at a university level, and a lot of work is required to go into it. Almost all my friends, when they heard about it, joined up last September, and all but 2 couples dropped out. And I think doing it as a couple or as with a friend would be advisable, because it is actually really hard. You do take a oral test and a written test, but they don't require much to pass it. And like you said, if you want to go for citizenship and become a citizen of the EU, that's an ideal path to take. I probably will do that course next fall after I have a really good grounding in lots of the basics, so that I'm not struggling with the very basics of, now, what is the word for was again?
Yeah.
Phooey. I get it now.
So I'm wondering if what they could do is charge people 500 euros to join the course, and then they get a refund when they finish. That way they don't get so many people drop out. Because it's $20. I mean, I could imagine so many of the couples after the first week, they're like, you know what? We'll let them just have our $20 or 20 euros and walk away.
Yeah, this is the beginning of my retirement. I'm on vacation. I want to travel, so that puts a big damper into your travel plans as well. Fortunately, the Portuguese enjoy their holidays a lot as well. So there are a lot of days that are
cancellations. Yeah. Okay. Awesome that you bring up traveling. And this was another reason why we haven't signed up for a course yet, because we too love to travel and we don't want to be restricted.
Yeah.
So you recently went to Italy. What are some other trips that you've done already that you've been living here in Portugal? And what are some things that you have planned, or some places you want to check off the list?
Oh, tons and tons. I've been to the Azores twice, and great fun both times. Highly recommend going there to visit if you like the outdoors, if you like, plan your trips around the whale season, because the whales, when they come, should be phenomenal. I've missed it both times. I've been to Italy. I've been over into Spain. We drove to Seville, which was thrilling because car rental is not expensive here the way I feel about it. 50
Agreed.
euros a day, especially if you've got more than one person.
And if you can drive a stick.
I can drive a stick. My dad
there you go.
required me to learn it back in the 60s. I
yes,
struggled
ma'am.
with the stick.
Nice.
So, as stick shift. Yeah, and the highways are really easy to drive on here. They've got a great system of tolls, which are expensive, and of course, gas is expensive. But you can take trains or buses to just about anywhere within Portugal. So I've been to Porto. I did the Camino last spring. We walked however many miles it is, 120 or 72, whatever the mileage is. But it was 7 days of walking from 8 a.m. till about 5 p.m. every single day. That was phenomenal. So you end up, you actually, if you're only doing 7 days, you spend most of your time on that walk in Spain, because you go north of Porto and go up to Spain. Italy for 2 weeks. Planning on going to Greece. I've been there before and want to go. This spring, a friend of mine from AA has put together a group of 20 people that are going snow skiing in Italy and Switzerland and France, because you can get to where all three border each other.
That's right.
You can choose which to ski on. Flying from Lisbon, you can go direct, back to the States. I've been to the States a couple of times for family matters. And then let's see, where else? Good grief.
You've already named a ton of spots.
I've been to Gibraltar, which was fabulous.
That's still on the list for us.
Yeah, and Ronda in Spain, down by the southern coast, the Costa del Sol of Spain, Marbella, and I've named a ton of places, and I feel like I'm always planning my next trip.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Well, so that sounds like a major pro to living in Portugal. What are some cons that you have of living here?
The language is difficult. It would be very nice if it was a classic Latin language that, Spanish in comparison is a piece of cake to learn. At least it feels like to me, because so much of it you already know. And I think the language, the food, if you're like me, health inclined yoga teacher wanting more vegetables, and that's been a little difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I think being away from my friends and family and my whole support network is more than I bargained for. But I'm gathering it here. I was very involved in the yoga community back in the States, back in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is actually where I'm from, and finding yoga that fits my style. Because yoga at my gym is actually pretty different than the yoga I'm used to, and not something that I go, oh, I can't wait to go, which is how I usually feel about it. I can't wait to go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that. And, a lot of people come here as couples, and I highly recommend that. It can be lonely at times. I'm fortunate to have gone through rehab and started up with AA because I've met a lot of good friends from there. And that's thrilling. These are people
like an instant community that you have.
And that's one of the benefits of AA is it is kind of an instant community. And
Nice.
I'm very good friends with 3 or 4 of the people where we've traveled. We've gone on weekend walks together. Yeah, it's nice.
That's great. Okay. So language, food, if you're not into Portuguese food, language being difficult, the support network that you lose whenever you move and having to rebuild that is a bit of a con. What was the other one?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
That
was it?
Well, and wanting things like yoga in English like I'm used to. Yeah. Now, having said that, I'm going to a juice retreat this in 2 weeks. It's a week-long retreat, juicing only. It's for fitness. It's for spirituality. We'll do yoga 3 times a day, and that will be yoga much more like what I'm used to. And the Portuguese are outwardly friendly, particularly when you're dealing with any service person. They just, anybody will try and help you. But I don't think they really open up their inner circles that fast or that well.
Agreed.
Yeah. So,
Agreed.
Having a good support system, and you could have, if you have children, I have a son, he's not able to come over just yet, but probably in the spring. But, I found that I could travel and some of my friends couldn't afford to travel the way I do.
Yeah.
So you end up making new friends, and having people come over to visit is really lovely. That's who I went to Italy with, was 2 friends from the US.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, at Expats Everywhere, we believe that living abroad transforms lives. How has living abroad transformed your life?
Oh gosh, it's ideal in a lot of ways. I chose Cascais partly because I could walk everywhere and don't have to have a car. And so that's increased my output of energy a lot. I walk most days, and sometimes 4, sometimes 5 miles, sometimes only 2. But, walking is an activity that you can do most every day, particularly if you're determined about it. You're young and athletic. I'm a yoga teacher. I don't go out of my way to, sweat a whole lot anymore. But it's never appealed to me that much. But yeah, and exploring other cultures, meeting people who have worked for UNHCR as a director of security. Good grief, the things, all the hotspots in the world, he was part of that. He was part of the protection process. Meeting people from the UN, meeting people who are well-versed in arts, who write write articles about music for the New York Times, which a friend of mine I was having dinner with last night just let drop. And I was like, oh, good grief. You're a radio announcer. All these famous people he worked with. Oh, goodness. I'm going to forget the guy that just died that did The Wreck of the Fitzgerald. Gordon Lightfoot. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
He was a producer for Gordon Lightfoot. So that's been thrilling to meet people from different areas. Sorry, can you hear that siren?
I can, but it's okay. It's the ambient noise of life in Portugal. No worries.
Yeah, it is. Gosh, I've worn shorts since I got here in May, and that's been great. I love the fact that I use no electricity in my apartment for heating or cooling virtually. I mean, I do have fans and stuff like that, but I can get by without it. Wouldn't recommend it necessarily unless you're just such a fan. I leave my windows open 24/7 and I don't get mosquitoes. Thank God. And being able to eat outdoors and to relax into community, that's very different. In Oklahoma, you have to drive everywhere and everybody's in a hurry. That's a function of working, of course, but it's also a function of the character of the country. Here, people, they close their businesses often at lunch, or if they're a restaurant, they close their businesses at 3 for their extended lunch, an hour and a half lunch. And so people here are very much more social. And that's something I really needed because I was in drinking so much. I was really isolating myself more and more towards my own house, my own bedroom, which is a sign of alcoholism. Is when you start to isolate yourself. And I did. And now I have the whole world open to me, and I'm excited about being able to travel anywhere. We're talking about going to the Galapagos, all over Europe, into Africa and India and Asia and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Well, we're excited for you. We really appreciate your time, spending some time with us. And we wish you the best continued health for you as well. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and meeting with Expats Everywhere.
Okay. Thanks, Josh.